I've been thinking about this one. I think from the Swedish maybe media or Swedish cycling, I'm often mentioned as the esports rider doing well on the road. And in the beginning, I felt like I was equally road and esports, but as time has passed, I would say I'm more towards an esports specialist.
Hello and welcome to episode 81 of the Virtual Velo Podcast with me, Emma Martin, and my co-host, Chris Schwenker. Well, the Virtual Velo Podcast, the show that bridges the gap between the athlete and avatar, keeping it real in the world of cycling esports. Now, we've been closely following our guest, Mika Söderström's impressive and unique career trajectory, marked by multiple Swedish road racing and Cycling Esports national titles, a stellar top 10 finish at the 2024 UCI Cycling Esports World Championship final in Abu Dhabi, and her sprinter's jersey at the MyWhoosh Championships recently. And boy, what a teamwork that was. She's a fierce sprinter indeed. We always say how much we love learning about the athlete behind the avatar, Chris.
No, it's absolutely true. And I've been looking forward to this. I think it's really going to be an extremely interesting look into the motivations of a multidisciplinary athlete. Could be wrong. I did some research, and I don't know if it was an exhaustive search, but I think Mika might be the only current road race and esports national champion in the women's peloton. Quite certainly the only two-time defending champion in both disciplines. But before you introduce our guest, Emma, I want to hear about your cross-discipline experience at the Paracycling Road World Championship in Reims, Belgium last week.
Well, yes, I have come literally hot foot back from there. A little train trip across Europe from Belgium through Brussels back to the studio here. The Paracycling Road World Championships, absolutely fabulous. 4 days, Chris. 2 days of individual time trial competition, 2 days of road racing. Think bikes, hand bikes, trikes and tandems. There is something for everybody, whether you're interested in sports engineering or just who goes the quickest. And can I just say, there are sneaky little crossovers with cycling esports. I'm going to give you a few names. Katrin Nielsen, Karolina Kolkowitz, Marvin Angarita Reyes. Yes, any of you who watch the Sunday Race Club regularly. In fact, Mika races regularly against Karolina Kolkowitz in Category 1 on the Sunday Race Club. But all three of those riders are pilots of tandems in the B category for visually impaired athletes. And all of them race regularly on Cycling Esports. So there's some real crossover and it's lovely. And I tell you something, I was staying in the same hotel as the Swedish team actually. And Katrin Nielsen comes running up to me at breakfast the first morning that we're there to introduce herself and say, hello, I'm Katrin, I race Sunday Race Club. And we had a fabulous conversation and it was absolutely brilliant. So I've had an amazing time. The racing has absolutely been superb. I mean, Katrin Nielsen and her teammate finished 7th in the road race. Marvin Angarita Reyes on that Colombian tandem with his partner finished 9th in the road race. And Karolina Kolkowitz and her compatriot Kuta on the back of that tandem were in the lead in the road race for a significant period of time on the final day. And they ended up taking the silver medal and second place in the road race at the World Championship. So it was absolutely phenomenal, Chris. And thank you so much for asking. But I tell you something, wherever I go around the world, there's cycling esports athletes just waiting to say hello.
Well, I'm looking forward to saying hello to Mika and getting her into the conversation. So why don't we do that, Emma?
Yeah, let's do that. Mika Söderström, welcome to the Virtual Velo Podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here, and also hearing is the 81st podcast you're releasing. I think that's impressive. Makes me really happy to hear.
Well, nice. Thank you. And I was just saying to Chris off air, actually, it's our 40th show since I came on board. So, time flies when you're having fun and getting to talk to great guests. And Mika, yet another great guest today to the Virtual Velo Podcast. It is absolutely fantastic to have you join us. To kick things off, can you share a little bit about what first drew you to competitive cycling, both on the road and then eventually in the virtual world?
I would almost say I started in the virtual world, actually. My first experience with cycling was when I was a runner and I got injured and I did cycling while I couldn't run. And then finally I got a career-ending injury and came to the terms with that I didn't enjoy running anymore. So I just started cycling for fun. I really enjoyed being out outdoors training. And I also had very easy access to indoors training because my dad owned a bike and a trainer. So in the beginning, it was just for fun. I didn't want to put any pressure onto it because I had a long history with mental health issues and performance anxiety while running. So I just came to cycling to enjoy, have fun. A competitive person I still am. Yeah, I ended up here.
So you were a runner then before you were a cyclist, through school and into competition, or?
I started when I was 7, like after school activities in track and field mainly. I did all the events, but I had the most talent in running, and I stuck to what I found most fun. So it became more elite running in my older years.
So whereabouts from Sweden are you? Where are you actually based, and what it's like there? Tell a few people about what your home region is like.
So I live north of Stockholm, which I think is where most people recognize a city in Sweden is Stockholm. So I live quite a bit north. So the good cycling roads, according to me, starts around where I live. So I have very nice, it's a lot of forests actually, and really nice, quiet roads around here.
You talked about starting in Cycling Esports, but you're also time road race champion of Sweden. How did that happen? When did you sort of think, oh, this cycling indoors is actually, I'm quite enjoying this. I'm going to venture outside and enter a race?
I can't remember exactly how it started and in what order I did things, but I was both riding outdoors and then in the winter, because our winters are very long and very cold, I also rode indoors. And then I came and saw this series that the Swedish Federation of Cycling is hosting, the Swecup series. And it was such an just easy, accessible way of racing a little bit when I was down in an injury period as a runner. So I said, why not try it out? So I tried out a few of those races on Zwift. And then when summer came, I went outdoors to ride. I had a few periods of then trying to get back to running, but I still kept up the cycling. I met a few cycling friends through just cycling, and they helped guide me, and they were like, do you want to come and try a race outdoors? And so I did, and then I think I've developed in both road and esports simultaneously and kept raising the bar and kept improving my physical performance as well. But I think the accessible higher level international competitions in esports, they're more accessible. So that's why I, in one way, have come further there. And I have raced outside of Sweden on the road as well, but there's so much more that you need to put in with time and resources to get there.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you've attained that level, considering that background. And having that perspective is something that very few people have. So I'm really interested in exploring that a little bit further with you. What similarities and differences stand out between the two disciplines, from strategy, mental readiness, which you mentioned, training, nutrition when preparing for, say, the Swedish National Road Race and the UCI Cycling Esports World Championships?
In terms of racing strategy can differ quite a lot. We have the element with indoors when you can just float around in a bunch, while outdoors you have to be more mindful of where you have people around you to not crash. But there are a lot of also similarities, I think. I need to use the same type of strategic thinking. It's a lot about analyzing how the bunch looks, what comes ahead in terms of the road, when people react, what do I know from my experience to do in a situation like that. But then exactly how I adapt depends on if I'm outdoors or indoors, of course. And then there are other elements, like road races are longer usually than esports races. You don't have as much control over nutrition necessarily if you don't get bottles in the feed zone or haven't carried enough gels with you. Well, indoors that's way easier. And training and preparation, I would say for the Swedish National Championships, I didn't really do anything specific. I was just carrying on my normal training. So what I did specifically towards that was just doing a recon of the course. But for the World Esports Champs, I do more preparation in a way because it's also easier accessible to recon the courses, know about the formats, look at your power numbers that you can do because you can repeat efforts that you think you will have to perform, and so on. And I'm a very So I'm an engineer, so I'm very much into data and analyzing data, and there's so much data to analyze in esports. And so I really like the aspect of it, which if you dig deep, you can find it as well outdoors, but there's just different indoors.
Yeah, I can certainly hear from you that the demands are different, but the same. But hearing you say that you didn't really train specifically for a 3.5 hour road race when the majority of your esports events are only an hour, I guess speaks to the level of talent that you have, which is really pretty remarkable. What aspects of esports do you find appealing over road racing?
Mainly that it's shorter. Like I come from running, and I come from middle distance running, and the like work that I put in there is in terms of 10 minutes or less. And I think in esports, I can get that type of same effort out, but more repeatedly, but during a shorter amount of time. The longer the race becomes, a different type of fatigue starts to enter the legs. And I just enjoy more the short, punchier efforts that I get in esports.
Well, you definitely are a short, punchy rider, and we'll maybe talk about that a little bit more shortly. Just sticking with where we are at the moment, and you just gave us a little clue, actually, to the next question I'm going to ask you, because many of our guests have shared the insights, like you, about the challenges and the rewards of esports, but also about balancing elite sport with life off the bike. Now, you have just given us the clue that you are an engineer, and that helps you because you love looking at the numbers and the data. But what do you do when you're off the bike? Tell us a little bit more about Mika's life when she's not riding a bike.
I am a Ph.D. student, so I do research at my university. And I also am involved in teaching activities and supervising of other students. So yeah, I like thinking, and I like physical exercise, and I think I get better at my job by riding, and I think I get better at riding by having my job, because they complement each other in a way. Like, I could be overstimulated if I only were thinking about work, but I can solve a lot of my work tasks actually when I'm out riding. And when I'm out riding, I get the break from working. So maybe I would work a little bit less because it's very time consuming. But I really believe that I feel much better by working than if I would just be a full-time cyclist.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Getting that balance, how one helps the other, both physically and mentally, I think is a really interesting relationship. Now, I am going to have to ask, and probably, I don't know who else is interested in this, but I really am. What is your PhD in?
It's about achieving deep brain stimulation using external antennas and electromagnetic waves. So I work a lot with electromagnetic theory and biomedicine.
Oh, fantastic. Now, you see, that's probably the best answer. That's brilliant. Wow. What a working life you must have, Mika, because that is absolutely, yes, I can see it. That's a different conversation. Let's move on.
Well, I think this is the third guest in a row, Emma. We had Tiffany, who is a PhD.
She's a PhD student, yeah.
We had Dr. Gilbert, who's an astrophysicist, and now we have Mika. And you're a professor as well. This is like the third episode in a row where I'm really reminded of how I'm intellectually inferior to everybody that we're surrounded by. In this.
There's a real relationship, Chris, between education and elite sport. The number of elite sport and world-class athletes I know who are MA, MSc or PhD students, the relationship, really is there a lot, actually, and it's a really interesting one, but really interesting to hear you say, Mika, about, that balance. I mean, Tiffany was alluding to it as well, wasn't she, in terms of the broad spectrum of things that she does and how sport interplays with them and etc. And it's so interesting to hear, in your life as well. But what a fascinating subject. I am just going to ask one very practical question, because when you are in the run up, for example, last year and potentially this year, because the World Championships is in November, you mentioned that you teach alongside do PhD studies. Now, the traditional academic year tends to be autumnal and spring-like, and then a break in the summer. That also fits alongside your racing part of Cycling Esports as well, which traditionally tends to be autumn and spring with a break in the summer. It hasn't quite been this way because the MyWhoosh Championships has been in August, but traditionally, if you look at the cycles of the year, your work and your sport are both very heavy in the same periods. How do you manage that? How do you work that out practically on a day-to-day basis?
I'm still figuring it out. I was at a 1-week conference trip to Italy, and I got back in the evening the day before the national championships on the road. So I don't know. It's just about, I think, not being, for me, too strict in my thinking in how I have to prepare or train for certain races. I am very adaptable. I love structure, but I'm also letting go of the stress of keeping that structure. So I think I'm good at adapting and also just trying to be consistent in general over time and trying to build up a good foundation so I can trust that my performance will be there, even if a week of training doesn't go as planned because I have heavy at work.
So you're obviously an analytical thinker, and you mentioned that you don't want to have the stress of sports get to you. And I have to bring up the subject that I always bring up because it's very important to me. And I'm very curious as to how athletes approach it. And that is the weigh-in protocol in our sport. There's obviously been a lot of focus on weight in the women's road peloton, which you're a member of as well. How do you navigate these pressures and prioritize your overall athlete well-being in an environment where such elements are often scrutinized?
It's a tough one. I would like to say it doesn't get to me to have to do the weigh-in, but that would be in a way it does affect me. I have to do it, but it's also, if I'm doing races every week, there will be weigh-ins every week, and it's just got to be a part of my everyday life. And the weigh is an input to the game because that's how physics works. Power to weight ratio. It works like that outdoors, it works like that indoors, and outdoors you race on whatever weight you're having in the moment. So to me, to have a weigh-in, I just wanted to reflect my natural weight because I just feel like that's how it's supposed to be. So I try to not think too much about it. I don't mind whenever they put the weigh-in window. To me, actually, the closer to the race, the more realistic it becomes. So just, I don't know, try to not think too much about it, is my approach.
That's a great answer. And I think that hearing that from you is very refreshing because there's so much focus on that. And, if there really just wasn't a lot of focus on it, then maybe it wouldn't be such a big issue, right? And that would make things better for everybody. But I can certainly see how it continues to be that way. And thank you for sharing your very honest thoughts on that. Thank you, Mika.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about those MyWhoosh Championships, which you have just come out of, Mika, and you and your team, just phenomenal racing all week. And I understand from the, how shall I say, my in the studio, behind the scenes chatter that I had with your DS every day, that there were plans that came to fruition that I didn't talk about in the studio at the time or on air because we didn't want anybody stopping them, or we don't give out things like that. But it was a really great week's competition for you, and those sprints, it was absolutely fabulous to see. And you came out with sprinter's jersey and some fabulous racing finales that you topped off in style. Are you pleased with how the championship went?
Oh yeah, I'm very pleased. It was so much fun, and I think, as you said, you had a chat with my DS. We are 5 in the team, but actually we are 7 because we both have Dylan and also help from Charles Lipka. And I think there's so much work going on behind the scenes that are not shown that makes it so much fun for us to race as a team. And I think everyone in our team felt like they had a job to do to fulfill and can contribute to the team even without being, for example, top 3 for the team's classification. So just to see Lisa helping me with a points jersey by stealing points from others, and me and Maria stealing points in the climb classification, for example. And then Lisa doing that amazing 1K to go, stage 3, just to either, I hoped she would get it, but it's such a hard thing to pull off. And we kind of knew that it would be very hard for her to pull it off, but I would really like her to get it. And also she's such a valuable racer in our team and helps with so much. But yeah, her doing that and basically sacrificing herself to give us the perfect lead out in a way without having to do the lead out, because we tricked others to do the lead out for us and it just worked out fantastic. And yeah, it's just such fun team dynamics going on and we all love it so much. And I'm very happy to be on a team like that.
Yeah, honestly, for us in the commentary box, and I'm sure viewers who were tuning in, it was just brilliant racing. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to ask you, have you competed in any multi-day stage races out on the road?
Yeah, one. I was in, what was that called? Gracia Orlova. It was five stage race over 4 days, I believe, that I did. So I had a little bit of experience.
How does stage racing out on the road compare with stage racing on the MyWhoosh Championships?
There's much more logistics, different starting locations, transfers between hotels, but I was also very fortunate to be there with the national team, and they took care of everything for me. I just needed to be where they wanted me to be at the right time. So that was really nice. With the indoor races, I don't have to transport myself anywhere, just on and off the bike, and I have everything in my home. But there, it was also the challenge, because I worked at the same time, to do that and then prep food. And I had a lot of help from my partner, Josh, who was there with me with everything around it, and then doing the same thing over and over. And he helped a lot to prepare.
I was going to say, the support crews in the background, be they DSs or, chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Absolutely crucial. So we're talking about that MyWhoosh Championships and this multi-day stage racing. Are you in favour of cycling esports heading further down that sort of traditional road racing path?
I would say that I don't believe or think that e-cycling should go towards road cycling necessarily, because e-cycling is its own discipline, and by being virtual, we have the possibility to do what we want with it and try new and exciting formats. So I don't think necessarily going towards roads is what will be the future of esports. But having these kind of stage race, I really enjoyed it. And I think actually MyWhoosh did a great job with putting together exciting stages, a lot of dynamics. And I think it just worked out really well. So I would be very excited to see that coming again in the future.
Yeah, I guess there is a place for it, and there would be a great. We've been speaking about balance, but I want to get back to the road racing with you. So you have multiple Swedish national titles. This year's Swedish Road Race Nationals, you finished ahead of Amelia Fallon, who races on the road for Arkea B&B Hotels, Caroline Anderson of Live Alula Jayco, and Julia Borgström of AG Insurance Udal. They're women's pro tour teams. And I'm pretty sure that they're the top 3 in active UCI points from Sweden. So you certainly were racing against some pretty impressive company, and you convincingly won by 7 seconds in the race. So before we actually talk about that itself, can you set the scene for the road race this year and how it played out for you?
It was, so racing in Sweden is very different to racing internationally. The bunch is way smaller. We don't have any teams. I think we're not even racing for teams, we're racing for local clubs. So I think one club maybe had 2 riders. Maybe there was another club having 2 riders, but otherwise everyone's for themselves. There's no team dynamics. You have to rely on your own legs, which makes the racing dynamics quite different, I think. And for me, I have been doing quite a few local races in Sweden where I only had myself to rely on. So I've got to know kind of what I need to do in different scenarios to make it work for me, which I think maybe that is maybe a strength for me to the World Tour. And it was a very flat course, no technical corners during the whole 130k long race. I am exaggerating or under-exaggerating, but nothing technical, no hills, nothing really. And I thought I can't pull off a 75k solo break to win like I did last year, because now they know I can do it, so that won't happen. Maybe there will be a group getting away, and then I have to make sure to be there. And how do I do that? Well, that's also hard, but I try to be active and taking initiatives and chasing things down. And I thought if it comes down to a bunch sprint, there's no way I will win a bunch sprint against these girls, because they're quite a good sprinters outdoors. I'm a great sprinter indoors, but it's very different sprinting outdoors. So I thought I have to do something else. And I'm not scared of taking risks, because to me, to win is not everything. I want to just finish feeling like I did the best I could, and I don't feel frustrated over a chance that I should have taken but didn't, because I was afraid of losing, basically. So I was like, either if it comes down to a sprint, I don't do anything, then I'll probably maybe end up last in the group, or I just try something very bold, which could be great, or I end up last, but at least I've tried something. So I just decided if there comes to a bunch sprints within 2 kilometers to go, if I get an opportunity, I'll just go for it and attack. And that's exactly what happened. It came down to a bunch sprint. I got the perfect opportunity, so it was super easy for me to just take the decision and go. I think because I thought through it so thoroughly ahead. I didn't waste any seconds of trying to think if it was the right thing to do. I just did it, which I also think was crucial for the move to work. So I just did an all-out attack with 1,500 meters to go, I think, and there was no it being a bunch sprint. And when they realized it was too late. So it was very special to realize it worked out.
Yeah, I could assume that it would be pretty special. Now, a lot of esports comes down to those short, punchy efforts, 2-3 minutes. Do you think that was an asset for you in that situation?
Yes, yeah, for sure. I think I was very tired, actually. So at one point I was like, I can't do anything else. But then the opportunity came and I had decided to do it. So it was just trying to do it. But I think I had that ability as a runner as well. No matter how tired I was, I always had a kick to the finish line. And I think not only from esports, but maybe just me and how my body works.
I would venture to guess that most 2-time road national champions are on some level of pro team, and yet you've never been on one. Under the teams on your pro cycling stats profile page is blank. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
So have you been approached by any pro teams? Why are you not on a pro team, considering the tremendous amount of talent that you have? Ever have any dreams of going pro, or is it just not fit in for you?
I have not been approached by any pro team. And I haven't reached out to any either. It's a bit of, I would say, maybe not holding me back, but my work life has a big impact, because when I've been out with the national team and racing, I've seen the kind of just work and time and effort and commitment you have to give to it. And I respect that so much. And I just feel like right now I don't have that time, or I don't want to prioritize that time to it, because I think that my PhD is giving me so much in life. And I think there's other things I would like to do than just being out racing on the road. It's like a balance between me wanting to know what I could be able to do in a pro peloton or in a pro team, but I'm also very fine with not knowing. And I enjoy esports so much, and it works so well. And if I get the opportunity to race in the pro peloton for a race or two, I will take it. I just enjoy it so much. But right now I don't want to prioritize the time and commitment that it takes to be a pro.
Does the access to such top tier competition in the Sunday Race Club on a very frequent basis, does that kind of satisfy that itch for you, that you're able to compete at the top level of a cycling discipline with the convenience of being able to focus on your PhD at the very same time?
Yeah, I would say that is a part of it for sure. And let's say me feeling like I belong somewhere and have a community, or just have a chat with people that are on the same page as me with wanting to perform and so on with my team for Sunday Race Club, and the same thing if we have events on Zwift. So I don't miss out on that element either. I get that through these races.
It's really interesting, isn't it, to be so competitive and to be top 10 in the world in your sporting discipline, yet still to be able to achieve the balance you want in your life with something else that's really significant. You know, I think it's a lovely place to be. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to switch tack a little bit, Mika, and because I want to talk to you about cycling esports in Sweden and the women, because it is phenomenal.
It's fantastic.
It is fantastic. That is another word. Fantastic, phenomenal. You could use all sorts of words that you want to, but it is an amazing situation. From your perspective, why has cycling esports become so popular in Sweden?
Well, our winters is an obvious answer. So to ride outdoors in the most of Sweden during winter is very hard. And so the access to indoor training makes more people ride indoors. But I also believe we were quite early when esports started to become more competitive. So we have developed a lot of knowledge within esports racing here, not only through the racers, but DSs. And I think many of the Swedish teams, for example, Team Swedish Swifters that are only Swedish racers, over the years, they've just built up this great team and great knowledge. And I think since we had that from the start, it also inspires more people to start and come into it. And there's already this support that can help them to develop quite fast.
But it's not just the numbers of riders, is it? The strength and depth in elite women's cycling esports specifically. I mean, okay, you've got some fabulous male riders as well, but the strength and depth of those women coming into the semi-finals last year and the finals, and the numbers of you that packed into that top 20 in the world, it was just exceptional. What do you think it is? I mean, you've talked about, the winters, the support systems and the structures, but is there something about the racing culture or accessibility that fosters the engagement and the strength of the riders?
I'm not sure, actually, because the game and the platforms are as easily accessible from wherever the world you are located, as long as you have the equipment, of course. So in that regard, I'm not sure what is distinguishing Sweden from other countries other than what I've just mentioned.
Maybe we'll go with just genetic makeup.
We can go with that, yeah, for sure.
But I have to say, it is fabulous to watch you all. And, I'm really looking forward to the semi-finals and watching you all play out and to see whether the same number of Swedish women make the finals this year for 2025 as they did in 2024. I'm sure you, for one, you will be there in the mix, and it's going to be great.
We certainly hope that. Now, one person that might have something to chime in here with is Conny Bjornhall, who's the Cycling Esports Director for the Swedish Federation. I'm just curious, do you feel that you get a lot of support from the Federation? Is that an asset for you?
What I think is great with the Swedish Cycling Federation, the whole, is that the esports has a clear part of Swedish cycling. We have Conny, that is the president of the esports side, and we have a whole group of people working with esports itself, which I think other countries hasn't developed quite yet. And I think the knowledge of having them there, taking care of all the things, takes away a lot of the work from us riders as well, because we know we have someone that could speak for us or take care of things for us, which I think is very valuable.
Now, do you ever feel pressure to ride on the road, considering you've had such success there and you obviously have significant talent?
A little bit, but I know who the pressure is coming from. Maybe mainly from myself, because now I do have the Swedish National Champs jersey and I want to be out there showing it because I'm very proud that I have it. But I've also come to terms with that I am allowed to do whatever I find most fun to do. And so just trying to let that guide me in my decisions.
The Federation has never said to you, you could be our next big time star here. We want you to focus on this. That's never been a conversation you've had with them.
No, it's never been a pressure. I've been speaking to the roadside as well and having conversations with them about where I'm at and how I'm feeling, what prospects they're seeing. And they've been very supportive in just letting me do what I feel like I want.
So I have to jump in and ask the question then, Mika. Do you identify as a road racer or an esports specialist? Or have I put you on the spot and you're not sure?
No, I've been thinking about this one. I think from the Swedish maybe media or Swedish cycling, I'm often mentioned as the esports rider doing well on the road. And in the beginning, I felt like I was equally road and esports, but as time has passed, I would say I'm more towards an esports specialist.
So, you talked about, being really proud of your road national jersey. I'm assuming you're also very proud of your esports national jersey. Are they of equal significance to you?
Yeah, they're both Swedish national titles. So they are both very significant. I think the difference between them is the esports national title. I feel more within myself that is a title that I should defend and that I really want, because I see myself now more as an esports cyclist. While when I started the national champs on the road this year, I didn't go in with the thought of I have to defend my title. It was more the thought of here's an opportunity to maybe win another title, but more an opportunity to just have a fun race. So I think that is the main difference for me between the two titles.
And I have to ask, the long-term plan then for 2026, both being on the start line of the road race and the Cycling Esports National title opportunities again?
Yeah, I have opportunity. So I think it's...
I love it. I'm just imagining the wall in your pain cave with like huge line of Swedish national title jerseys. I mean, you've already got 4. I bet there's very, very few people in Sweden who have 4 national titles and 4 jerseys. I think it's a phenomenal achievement.
I think Jenny will outnumber me.
Well, that is very true, actually.
Jenny Risfis.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I agree. But I'll tell you something. What a person to be alongside.
Yeah, definitely. She's been a huge inspiration for me as well. I think she's super cool, and just her view on cycling as well from the mental health perspective. I think it's just, I think she's amazing. So.
Yeah, she's a phenomenal advocate and an absolute, like you say, inspiration for women's cycling right the way across the world. So to be even at the table with her, I would be. Yeah, I think it's a great achievement, and it really, really is. Oh, Chris, I'm going to hand over to you.
Well, I'm curious, considering the crossover there, does safety factor into your decision at all to focus on esports? Obviously, road racing can be a very precarious position to be in a lot of times in the peloton, moving at high speeds. Does that you ever think about that?
It's hard to not think about the safety, but I am also choosing to do road racing knowing the maybe safety risks or what could happen, but I still go down descents in very high speeds. And in the moment of the race, I don't think about it that much, but I wouldn't say it's the safety that makes me go towards indoors versus outdoors. There are other factors like time.
Right, time and convenience, of course.
Yeah.
So the Cyclist Alliance, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with, Emma, I'm sure you are. You might even be a member of it. Both of you. The Cycling Alliance is the independent riders union for the women's peloton, and they release an annual survey every year discussing all the major issues in the women's peloton, including salary statistics. And they're pretty stunning when you look at them. 17% of the riders receive no salary. 84% of the pro Conti riders earn less than $24,000 US per year. And the minimum salaries for pro team and women's world tour riders are $53,000 and $84,000 respectively. All the numbers fall well below many of the top esports athletes. In fact, you've already won almost $22,000 this year racing on MyWhoosh alone. Is the money a motivating factor for you?
Yeah. To not say that I also race a lot indoors, not for money, wouldn't be true. I'm very fortunate, I feel like, to have talent within a discipline where there's also prize money available. I'm thankful I am good at this and that it can also help me. But it's not my main income. I do have my work, so I don't need it in that regard. But I think it makes my life easier in a way that I don't have to worry about having spare parts if I would crash, or I can get the nutrition right that I need. And it's more of a kind of convenience thing to make me better and not stress about these kind of things, because cycling is an expensive sport, especially if you're not on a team or sponsored. So it's very helpful in that way.
Considering all those things that you just mentioned and those statistics that I just read out to you, are you surprised that more talented female racers don't take the esports path, if even only as a way to maybe fund their road racing aspirations? Are you surprised there aren't more racers that are getting involved at the top levels of esports?
Yes and no. I think that quite many are not aware that this exists. And that it could be something that could help them out. But you also need to be a bit committed to esports with doing this every Sunday over a longer period of time. And I think maybe it's also feeling a bit inconvenient to have to do the verification if you're not going to be more invested in the sport. Because even if it's a very easy, accessible way of racing in esports, there's a lot of protocols to follow around it, which is crucial for our sport, of course. But I think that might be one of the reasons.
Now, you mentioned that a lot of athletes aren't aware. Would you like it to stay that way?
I want to race against the best, so everyone could come. I think there's this thought that esports is just cycling and all the world's pros, if they would enter, we wouldn't stand a chance. And in a way, cycling is about the physical ability, and the road pros are such a great cyclists. But there are elements within esports that you might not necessarily be able to handle, even if you're a good road racer, which we have seen examples of as well. Road racers doing a little guest visit and seeing that it's quite hard with esports. It's not just turning the pedals. It's more to it than that.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Whilst Ashley Millman Passio and Loza Gis have both won that World Championship esports titles, if you look through the first couple of result sheets of the first couple of Cycling Esports World Championships, it is littered in both the men's and the women's competition with road pros. It is a really interesting assumption, isn't it? And I think you're really right, Mika, that actually there really is something else to it. And it's not just an assumption. I mean, come on, Ollie Jones beat Matthew van der Poel recently.
Yeah.
So I have to say I agree with you. I think it's really, really interesting. So can I ask you, are you excited to represent your country again this year if the opportunity presents itself in Abu Dhabi?
Yes, very. That would be an honour.
So the 2025 UCI Cycling Esports World Championships are introducing this year a revamped format. Yeah, so it is a little bit different to last year. The public qualifiers are now complete. The semi-finals and the finals, the format hasn't been raced yet. It's quite exciting. What are your initial thoughts on the changes, and how do you see them? Do you see them impacting on your preparation or race strategy in any way?
I haven't looked into details about the format yet. I tend to be a little bit obsessive if I start too early and obsessing over the details. I have looked in the overview and I have a pretty good understanding of what's going on. I just haven't dug into the very detailed analysis that will happen in my head soon. But I think I'm very curious about the final, more climby stage and how that will play out. If I take an analogy to last year, I would say I'm as uncertain about how that will play out as I was of stage 1 last year with the sprint segment and the fastest time there. I think the other two, as long as we're allowed to race or ride on the courses, those two will be easier to figure out how to have your strategy to suit like my strengths to those courses. But I think we won't know how the stage 3 will play out until after the semifinals, I think. I will try my best to try and see how I think it will happen. But as of right now, I think there are too many unknowns variables here for me to understand.
You see, that's the engineer coming out.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where the strategy coming out also. An athlete like you, Mika, who is more of a sprinter, has to make first 2 stages so that you have the points going into that third stage that certainly is very much skewed towards an FTP test for climbers, right? It certainly is the case. And now the qualifications are kind of a mystery at this point, but if history repeats itself, you're going to have a lot of teammates there. Did you have a pretty strong strategy going into semifinals last year? Were they racing for anyone in particular, like notably you? And do you have any insight into how that's going to play out this year?
Last year, at least in the semifinals, we had a bit of tactical plan. For example, Lisa managed to qualify for the finals by doing the stunning first sprint to grab sprint points at the first segment, and then just did whatever she could. And she had the help of another Swedish rider, Anna Söderström, in that sprint. And that worked out perfectly. And then towards the final laps of the final stage there, with points on top of the climb, we also communicated during and made sure I, for example, dropped a few places to help some of my teammates to get more points to qualify there, which was also possible because we were able to communicate over Discord, for example. While in the finals, we didn't have an easy way to communicate with each other. So even if we had a plan going into it, you can always have a plan, but you can never control what others do. And that could easily just ruin your plan completely. And if we're not able to communicate because we're not shouting at the stage, then it's very hard to try and organize yourselves. So we always have a good plan ahead, but then there's so many unknowns that can happen during. So it's hard to plan for every scenario, even if you try.
Well, planning for every scenario, I'm going to ask you one final question, Mika, and I really want to sort of take a look at that broader landscape of the future. Where do you see cycling esports heading in the next few years, and what excites you most about its potential, or what challenges or areas of growth do you think will take place?
I think it will grow for sure, and I hope it will. I still see esports as quite a young discipline or sport, like in a way still trying to find its identity, maybe, and what cycling esports actually is. And I hope it can be more easily understandable for outside viewers. I think it's very easily accessible, also with all the different categories, and you can enter no matter your level, and you can still compete against people at your level, which I think is fantastic. But I think it can still be hard for outside viewers to understand what's going on. And I think that is crucial to gain more attention or get more attention towards the sport. But just seeing the direction it has taken the last year, I think we will see more pure esport professionals where esports is their main activity as pros. And I think that will increase. And I would hope it also goes that way, because we are a lot of people that put a lot of effort into it, and then to also get it back and give us an environment where we can actually develop a lot, I think is important. And I hope it's there we're going towards.
Well, I hope so too. I think we'll leave that there. So, Mika Söderström, thank you so much for joining us today on the Virtual Velo Podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure spending time speaking to you and finding out a little bit more about who Mika Söderström is.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you can subscribe to the Virtual Velo Podcast on your favourite podcast provider and, of course, on YouTube. You can follow me, Emma Martin, on Instagram at biking_Emma, and you can follow Chris at the Zwift. You can catch up with me putting words to the action this weekend on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Cup. And then very, very quickly, I am skipping over to Switzerland, where you can indeed hear me putting words to the UCI 2025 Mountain Bike World Championships later on next week. You can head over to thezimmunique.com and please, of course, become a member of the Escape Collective to join the conversation and support independent cycling esports journalism. We will have some more interesting guests from the world of cycling esports joining us, including the UCI Cycling Esports consultant, Jacob Fraser. For once, we don't have several guests waiting in the wings. We're waiting to see how the World's semi-finals play out so that we can invite a few guests onto the show to give us their perspective on the event. See, we're planning ahead. We're excited to see who will be here next. Well, thank you to Mika Söderström for sharing her multidisciplinary perspective, and to you, our listeners, for joining us on the Virtual Velo Podcast. Chris will remind you to please take care of your heart, get a coronary calcium scan should you even possibly think you might need one. Me, as ever, stay safe, enjoy your riding. We'll see you again soon. Goodbye.